this shower, at first glance, looks very nice. Made out of marble, and we have a mosaic on the shower floor, which matches the tub and the other marble over here, which is fine. It looks great. But some of the issues that you can run into, and this is kind of a heads up for other people that are going to have their shower done. Some of the issues that you have to look out for, as much money as they spent building this shower, because this, even if they went on the low end of the marble, these are $4 a piece. So you can imagine how much they spent just doing this whole bathroom. I mean, you're looking at probably close to $1,000 in material just for the surface stuff of what you see. And then for somebody to come in and do it wrong is a little aggravating, both for me, because I do a lot of these type of recordings, but also for the homeowner, because you know, it is extra expense that doesn't need to happen. So the story on this is that there's a leak up underneath in the crawl space, and there's a leak for a lot of different reasons. Nobody can put their finger on exactly one reason why things go wrong. It's usually during the tear out process that I find, kind of the crux of the problem. But sometimes all you have to do is look around, and you see there's a pretty large gap up under this ledge of the knee wall. That gap was never filled, although that ledge does overhang, and because the shower head's up here, it's very doubtful water is going up under into that gap, but it should have been filled, and so they just missed that boat altogether. Some people call a plumber right away when they have a leak from a shower, and the plumber 99% of the time tells the homeowner that it's a shower pan. In this case, it's not the shower pan. I know that for a couple of reasons. One, I see that the liner is actually cut in an X type fashion rather than a circle, so the liner flap is on the inside of here, which means that they at least did the pan liner right. But pan liners don't leak. If they're going to leak day one. And so there's a lot of other issues that I look at. The curb is usually one of them. So the way the curb is set in here is kind of shoddy. They actually used, which I would never suggest this mosaic on a shower pan anyway, but they used it on the inside of here where they really should have used more of a solid surface. And because this is marble, I would have probably used the contiguous curb tops, which they make out of marble, so that there wouldn't be any of these grout lines. I'm not saying that these grout lines are a problem. I'm just saying you want to eliminate a possible problem before it exists. Usually where I see damage is at the edge of the curbs, and it's possible that the leak happened from one of these edges. There's no way to tell that. I doubt that it came from there, but there could be some issues going on. Again, I guess what I'm saying is, when you're having something done, you should kind of know the process. You should know how things are set in. You should know what you don't know going in, so that you don't end up with a problem like this retroactively after you've moved in or after you've had something done like this. The biggest issue that I have, despite where the leak is coming from, is that a mosaic on a shower floor should never be used unless they're going to use an epoxy grout, which in this case they didn't. In fact, they did the opposite of what you're supposed to do. They used a sanded grout. I know that because I can peel off the sand up under my fingernail. This is all sand from sanded grout. Sanded grout is a big no-no, especially on marble tile. You would never use sanded grout, yet they use sanded grout, and the reason is because it'll scratch the surface of all your tile, and you don't want that done. It looks like further up maybe they used unsanded grout. Regardless, they didn't do the shower pan right. Right here is puddling. So there's puddling here, and there's a little puddling here. There's very profound lippage on here. These lines don't match up. There's a gap in between here. This is obviously two different sheets of tile that they weren't able to match up. And for whatever reason, look at there. So for whatever reason, they had a lot of issues trying to set this mosaic on here in the first place. And then there's a very profound dip going on here. So they had a lot of issues setting this tile in the first place, but had they only, say, gotten some 4x4, anytime they sell marble they usually have matching 4x4. I would have rather have seen that than something like this, or even a 4x4. A 2x2 would even be preferable than this. This alone, if it's not sealed well, as I said, using epoxy grout or sealing it well, is going to cause you problems later on down the road with water getting into your pan. And so these the individual tile might start popping up off of the floor, and then you've got a bigger problem. They set their wall tile first, and then they did the floor tile. So now you have this horizontal grout line where water can just sit there and penetrate into your pan rather than your vertical grout line. So I wouldn't have done that either. Where the leak is coming from, it's very possible that they did their pan liner wrong around here, because there's obviously this gap going on where the drain is setting. But I know that not to be true, because I have gone up underneath around where the P-trap is and everything, and there's absolutely no water going on. Most of where I'm seeing the water is coming from the knee wall, and as I alluded to earlier, 8 times out of 10, water is getting into the curb and thereby getting into your floor. Your floor gets saturated enough and eventually starts leaking, and you think it's over here somewhere because the water is going to the path of least resistance, but it's not over here. It's from the floor. It's from the curb. But in this case, it could be either. It could be from what I just explained, from the curb saturating the floor and just pooling over here to the path of least resistance, or it could be this knee wall. The other 2% of the time is the knee wall. When water, especially from the shower head, is bouncing onto your knee wall constantly all the time, I pull out knee walls all the time where the framing in here is rotted out. The framing is typically 2x4s or 2x6s, and I see it just totally saturated with water, almost like it's been through a fire. Time and again, I see that damage on the knee wall. That has a lot to do with no slope. In this case, they used a piece of marble on here, which is great because there's no grout lines. But when that water hits the grout lines constantly, continuously, it gets through the grout, and then it begets your leakage issues because nothing's waterproofed. And I guarantee they didn't waterproof any of these walls anyway. So the water could be hitting all of this grout here, getting through, and eventually penetrating, making this grout weaker and penetrating through and hitting all those boards. I anticipate if I actually took out this little small knee wall here, that this wall was saturated with water. But regardless, the leak appears to be coming from this knee wall, so I'm going to guess that it's coming from here. The problem is, and despite everything that I've said about this whole shower makeup and what not to do and all that stuff, it's irrelevant what the problem is. It still has to be mitigated, and the only way to do that is to tear things out. And when you start tearing things out, you know, it's extra cost that doesn't need to be done. On here, it's especially difficult because of the way the glass was cut, the way this mosaic is put on the wall. Just a lot of different issues make taking this out and correcting the problem much more difficult, almost to the point of having to build a new shower, which is totally unnecessary. This shower is less than a year old and it's leaking, probably from day one. So what I'm basically saying is adhere to how things are being built. Know what you don't know. A lot of the reasons I do the videos is so that the process and all the explanations I give can save you money and angst in the future. And all these things are important. Any one of these things could be potentially a problem. I don't know that this was a tiler or a homeowner that did this. This marble is lippage free. So I'm almost guessing that, you know, it was a tiler. You know, he made sure he did 45 cuts, everything was symmetrical. I don't know that I would have put this on the outside. Usually if you're going to have this, that would cover the edge of here, but that's small potatoes. When I look at a job overall, you know, cutting a hole in for the shower head rather than a slot tells me a lot of things about the tiler. So he was an okay tiler, but building a shower is a whole different ball of wax. Many times I have people who have had their floor done by a tiler or a backsplash or something, and then he tries to do a shower, which he's never done before, and then you run into problems like this. So due diligence is required when you hire somebody. Make sure they know what they're doing, and if they don't, you should.